Welcome to the Laceology podcast. We are on the week 3 recap, and this is your host, not Rich Eisen. Today we're going to recap the third NFL week of the season before week 4 starts tonight, Thursday Night Football. And we're just going to we're not going to so much go over the statistics, but more of the storyline, kind of summarize the games. I think this will be a better format. And we're going to, instead of making picks for all the games, at the end we're going to go over what I believe to be the top 5 matchups for this coming week 4. But let's start with exactly a week ago we had the Steelers and the Browns, two teams that don't seem to really have a identity to them at all. And the Browns team were coming off a week where they were shocked from the Jets coming back by how much they did. But this week they got matched up with a continuously sputtering offense in the Steelers, led by Mitch Trubisky. And Brissett had yet another impressive showing with the likes of Nick Chubb, while the Steelers couldn't really say the same. And while the Steelers did have a good start in the first half, the offense sputtered real fast. They had a punt in the first 3 possessions of the second half. And it still begs the question, and I know Tomlin can feel the pressure of the fans, when are you going to put Kenny Pickett in? And I know you have to be patient with the process that is Trubisky, but I think there's going to be quite a lot of pressure on the Pittsburgh front office and the coaching staff to put the rookie quarterback in. And even if Pickett comes out playing poorly, I think fans would rather have that, because at least they know with Kenny he can improve. I think he has a high ceiling, and he is the long-term answer for the franchise. Mitch Trubisky isn't the long-term. He's the temporary Band-Aid while they develop Kenny Pickett to eventually play. And I think either after this year or next year, I think they'll probably let go of Trubisky. And I think at that point we'll see Trubisky kind of become this journeyman quarterback like we saw with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Like he's just going to be on 7 or 8 different teams by the time he retires. And then we go to technically the first noon kickoff game with the Bills and the Dolphins, and what a game. What a game this was. The Dolphins continued to deliver on entertaining games week after week, and it kind of blew my mind that I found out this game was not a national broadcast, or at least an A-team game for any network. I thought for sure this would be a Bill Nance, Tony Romo game. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but nonetheless, we still got arguably the game of the week. This was pretty much a playoff game, an AFC playoff game, and it had and will continue to have a lot riding on this game going forward deeper into the season. And I believe wholeheartedly that at the end of the season, we're going to be talking about the division winner for the AFC East and what the AFC playoffs are going to look like looking back on this game. And, I think this game is going to actually have a lot carrying on it for the playoffs. Admittedly, though, the Bills were the better team. They were. They had every opportunity to win this game. Allen had a pretty much wide open Isaiah McKenzie in the flat and just skipped it off the ground. And the Dolphins had a butt punt that flew out of the back of the end zone for a safety. And the Bills are within 2 points now, and they get the kickoff. And Josh Allen's moving the ball effectively down the field. He hits McKenzie for a good gain. And listen, McKenzie had the opportunity to get out of bounds to stop that clock with probably 8 seconds remaining. But he tried to stay in bounds, eat up more yardage. They can't get to the line in time to spike the ball, and they lose. There's also an investigation going on into the Dolphins' concussion protocol. Tua left around the end of the first half with reportedly a concussion. He was cleared and was back to playing after halftime. Teddy was only out there for 2 drives. So hopefully nothing serious, but now you have to look at the AFC and kind of face the music, and the music is that the number 1 team right now today in the AFC is Miami. And I don't honestly think anyone. And I think we knew Miami was going to be a great team. I didn't think we would ever say they're the best team in the AFC, at least record wise. Um, but they are, and it caused the Bills OC to rage quit in the booth. So, and then we head up north to technically New Jersey, and the Bengals are back. The Bengals are back. Joe Burrow, aka Kevin McAllister, whatever you want to call him, he's back. And that offensive line held up too. When Joe Burrow is only sacked twice in a game, it's a blessing. Especially when the first 2 weeks saw him sacked 13 times. You cannot keep a quarterback healthy and playing well if he's laying down on the ground all the time. Burrow had 3 touchdown passes on their way to stomp out the Jets, who at any moment should have Zach Wilson back. It's almost confirmed that he's going to be probably back this week to play Pittsburgh. But I think there could be a chance too, because Joe Flacco is not playing the worst. He's not playing the best, but he's not playing the worst. He's in the top 5, or at least was in the top 5 for total passing yards in the league right now. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe Robert Saleh will make the decision to keep Wilson under Flacco for a couple more games, just to make very sure that he's okay from his injury. Or maybe they decide last second that maybe Wilson's not completely ready yet to get back out, and Flacco can still kind of be that mentorship role if he is already taking that role on. But I mean, who knows? It's something that could happen, and maybe it's something to watch in the next couple days. But I mean, I'm pretty sure Wilson is going to start. But nonetheless, Bengals are finally back to what we expected them to be before the season even started. Hopefully T. Higgins is okay. He took a massive, massive hit that pretty much knocked him out cold, but we hope he's doing okay. And, I mean, this is just the start of the Bengals' journey this season to finally gain momentum. This could have been a trap game for them, but, I mean, they needed this game against the Jets to finally get that momentum going. And maybe we'll see it carry into the rest of the week. Okay, Raiders and Titans. My opponent this week in my fantasy league had Derrick Henry this week, and Derrick Henry pretty much single-handedly gave me a loss this week. And I mean, he was unstoppable. The Raiders defense just didn't want to deal with him. And I mean, I completely understand that. I mean, would you want to tackle Derrick Henry? Probably not. And as for the Raiders, you have to kind of ask yourself, when is this offense going to unleash to what we think it's supposed to be? You have a solid quarterback in Derek Carr. You have a Pro Bowl tight end with Waller, and you have Devontae effing Adams. He's the best wide receiver in football, and he's had 50 yards in the last 2 weeks. Sure, he's had 2 touchdowns, but he's clearly not the force he was. He's not the same force in between the red zone than he is in the red zone. And he's not what we saw in Green Bay, or even what we saw in the first week of the season. Now, reportedly, Al Davis, the owner of the Raiders, and the head coach, McDaniels, did have a closed-door meeting. Nobody really knows what it was about, but I'm sure there's going to be speculation that McDaniels is on the hot seat. I don't think so. If anything, Davis is probably just trying to figure out what is going on with the team being so underwhelming, for just how much talent McDaniels has underneath him on that team, especially after Al Davis just threw so much money around to improve the team, like Devontae Adams trade, extending Waller, Crosby, giving a bunch of money to Chandler Jones. So what is it? What is keeping this team from winning games? Because they are now the only team in the league yet to get a win. So, hopefully they address it soon, because they are in quite the hole that they found themselves in. We head all the way back to the East Coast. I guess we were kind of on the East Coast. The last game was in Tennessee, but we go a little bit farther east to Carolina, where we saw divisional matchups, Saints and Panthers. Now, Panthers fans, you finally got that win. It's against our divisional rival, nonetheless. Probably doesn't really feel like a win, though, does it? I mean, as long as you have Matt Rule at the coaching position, and I mean, remember all those rumors last week about Matt Rule possibly being fired after this Week 3 game? Well, good news, Panthers fans. All that hope you might have had about losing Matt Rule is gone, or at least pushed aside for now, because you get a win against a divisional rival team in the Saints. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's either you win the game or you fire Matt Rule. So which one is, whatever you want more. So hopefully this win was worth it. But we saw Jameis Winston with multiple turnovers 2 weeks in a row, and it was enough this time to lose two. And Baker didn't even really have a good game, and he didn't really need to because McCaffrey and the defense basically dragged him to the win anyways. So Matt Rule survives another week on the hot seat, missing that bullet. And I mean, I think it's just a matter of time. It just depends how long he can dodge his inevitable fate of getting fired, which will probably happen this year. But I don't know, I guess I'll have to find out. I'm not the Panthers front office either. We're sticking on the East Coast for this next game. We had Baltimore and New England. The biggest news line for this game, the Ravens scored a lot of points, and the other team was kept from not scoring a lot of points either. And obviously the Ravens coming off a crushing blow against the Dolphins, losing a 21-point lead late in the game. An unbelievable game, scored another 35-plus in this game to take out the Patriots. Mac Jones left with what's appeared to be a serious injury that could see him out for several weeks. And hopefully he has a speedy recovery. He was already dealing with injuries after the Week 1 game. So it's just been a rough start to the year for him. As for Jackson, the man basically increased his asking price this offseason contract by like $5 million after this game. He had 4 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, 300-plus scrimmage yards for 2 weeks in a row. I mean, the guy can do anything. He knows that he's owed a lot of money, and he has clearly made it his goal in life to show this season that the Ravens front office better pay him or get him the contract he wants before another team does it faster. There were rumors recently already that Jackson has a list of teams he wants to go to if he does not get his contract with the Ravens. And one of those rumored teams happened to be the Lions. And I've said before that I don't believe Goff is the long-term answer at quarterback for the Lions. And I could see Detroit dishing out money for a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. I think him and Dan Campbell would reign on the NFC for a while. They would be quite the force to deal with. Speaking of the Lions, we had the first divisional rival of the season for them with the Vikings, and to be honest, it looked like the Lions were going to solidly handle the game. They looked as though they had a strong hold on this one, but late it just slipped out of their hands, and it hurts to watch because as much of a Packers fan as I am, along with I think a lot of other people that follow football somewhat closely, have been Lions fans ever since Dan Campbell took over head coaching duties in Detroit. And to see them lose there at the end was hard to watch. Minnesota's defense really came in clutch. Kirk Cousins had a couple of clutch plays, including that game-winning touchdown pass to KJ Osborne that pretty much sealed the fate for the Lions. The Vikings, however, showed that even when Justin Jefferson disappears from the game, they can still win convincingly. And still operate on offense without a huge production out of him. And we didn't really see that in Week 2 against Philly, but, I mean, they proved us wrong this time. Dalvin Cook went out with an injury, which was one of the biggest storylines from this game. He's listed with a partial shoulder dislocation, and it's really not super clear whether or not he'll be ready to play against the Saints in London this coming Sunday. So that'll be I think Alexander Mattison is a pretty good replacement anyway, but then we're going back out to the East Coast. Eagles at Commanders. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he is most likely the dark horse pick for MVP, in my opinion. I think the thing with him is that everyone knows he's good. He's playing really well, but I don't think anyone is even thinking about him being a possible MVP candidate when it's all said and done, which is a shame because right now he's playing on an identical level to that of someone like Lamar Jackson, who at this moment is my other MVP prediction for the season. And while Hurts is racking up 300 plus yards of scrimmage, the other side of the field has the quarterback that Philly at one point said would be their future, but I think it's safe to say now that they found that future at quarterback. And Carson has sputtered ever since his major injury in 2017, the one that turned the Eagles into that underdog story of the decade with Nick Foles leading that team to a Super Bowl victory. Carson Wentz was well on his way to more than likely being the MVP for that year, and now the one Super Bowl ring that he has was won by his backup, and now what? It's pretty much been a downward spiral for him. He's been thrown between teams. He really has not had a season even close to the one he was having before the injury, and now his team is getting demolished by the team that drafted him with the quarterback that they know is the future for the Eagles, and he has to kind of sit there watching Jalen Hurts score multiple touchdowns while he has none. And I imagine it's just a full circle, how did I get here kind of moment for Carson Wentz. And I don't know, I kind of feel bad for him. I really do. And then we go up to the great state of Indiana. Chiefs fans woke up on Monday probably wondering what the hell went wrong, because damn, that was such a surprising game to watch. I had the Chiefs routing the Colts pretty easily in this one, and it was pretty much the opposite. The Colts defense really answered the call for this game. They had a pick on Mahomes. They held the Chiefs to basically zero rushing attack. Mahomes ended up being the leading rusher for the team with 26 yards. And the Colts defense that everyone thought they were going to see from week one finally showed up. And it wasn't a big matchup against Mahomes and the juggernaut team of the Chiefs. But I mean, it wasn't by any means a blowout game for the Colts. Matt Ryan was harassed behind that O-line with 5 sacks. Jonathan Taylor had a solid game, but it wasn't a normal Jonathan Taylor game. And it really came down to two things. Colts defense getting 1 turnover on Mahomes, and Matt Ryan virtually making no mistakes despite having almost no peace in the pocket. I don't think it's still the Matt Ryan that the Colts expected to get quite yet, but I definitely think this is a step in the right direction for them. Then probably the hardest game to watch, even as a neutral fan, the Texans and the Bears. Once again, the Bears defense and their rushing attack drags Justin Fields to another win in the Windy City. Fields with another game under 10 completions, and this is not the expectation I had for Fields this season. I thought there was going to be a very noticeable improvement in his play, but it seems quite the opposite, at least for now. It's still only the 3rd week of the season. And sure, you could say it is because of the new coaching staff, whatever you want to say it is, but this feels like a sharp decline compared to last year, more than it should be. This feels more than a coaching staff situation, and it very well could be the fact that he doesn't have the same weapons from last year. He doesn't have Robinson anymore, and really the only for sure weapon they have besides David Montgomery is Mooney, which hasn't really had an explosive year either. Cole Kmet is there, and he's kind of here nor there, but he had an explosive year. Or I'm sorry. The front office for Chicago they got to find him some weapons, whether that's at or before the trade deadline or in the off season, but he needs something. But nonetheless, they still carried out a victory over their former beloved coach Lovie Smith. Not a whole lot of positive to talk about in terms of quarterback play. It was very much a defensive game. Fields was sacked 5 times and picked twice. And, I mean, if David Montgomery stays out after he leaves the field with that injury, the Texans probably win that game. And that's really all I have to say about that game. And then Probably the biggest shock of the weekend, the Jaguars and the Chargers in LA, the battle of the long-haired quarterbacks. It was not the game I think anyone saw turning out the way it did, but damn did the Jaguars take it to the Chargers. Unfortunately for LA, they suffered multiple casualties, including Boza, Slater, who might be out for the season. Not to mention Herbert was already playing with a broken rib or rib cartilage or whatever it is. But he still played Superman, though, threw for just under 300. The only difference being that Lawrence outscored him 3-1 in terms of passing touchdowns. And it also didn't help either that the Chargers had absolutely no run game to speak of, while Robinson on the other side had 100 yards to his name. But the Jaguars defense though looks really good, like really good. They've allowed 10 points total through the last 2 weeks, and that's it. One against what usually is a high-powered offense with the Chargers, but Doug Peterson has really turned that team around in just the 1 year, and I can already say that because there's nowhere to go besides up compared to last season. I mean, Peterson's already matched Urban Meyer's record for wins with the team. I mean, who could have seen that coming? And the answer is everyone. The answer is everyone saw it coming. I mean, Urban Meyer is just the wrong hire from the get-go. Peterson is a real coach, a proven one at the NFL level. I mean, he has a Super Bowl in the last 5 years. So, I mean, the way he's already improved the team from last season, I think he'll be in Jacksonville for quite some time. And then we head to sort of the West Coast, if-ish, Rams and the Cardinals. Now, there is really no other way to describe this game other than boring. Like, just boring. The Cardinals scored only field goals. I really can't tell what kind of team the Cardinals are trying to be. I can't tell if Murray's actually worth the contract they gave him. Like, I don't know. Both QBs had 0 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns from the Rams, basically one for them, and that was pretty much it. And the Cardinals' defense is still showing glimpses of a great defense, but there really is only so much you can do with an offense that can't stay on the field or even rack up an efficient amount of points. I mean, the Cardinals are just waiting in the wing for Hopkins to return because it's an instant improvement for that offense and it's Kyler Murray's go-to target. But, I mean, besides that, I would just blame Murray's performance on the fact that it was open beta for Call of Duty, and that's all I gotta say. Next matchup was down south, what I call the game before the storm. Green Bay faced Tampa Bay, Battle of the Bays, and this probably will be the last matchup between Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. And it was quite the strange one, to say the least. Rodgers and the Packers got off to a hot start with 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives, and then it was pretty much a defensive showdown the rest of the way. Green Bay didn't score at all after halftime, but the Packers' defense really lived up to the hype that surrounded them before the season. Brady had a lot of pressure on him, and the Packers forced 3 fumbles, 2 of them which were turnovers. One of them they didn't get. Granted, this is probably a different game if Mike Evans and even Godwin are in the game. And then there is the controversial no call on a possible delay of game that led to Tampa making it a 2-point game, which then ironically happens on the first attempt of the 2-point conversion. They get called for delay of game, which backs them up 5 yards. They go for the 2-point again, and this time it's denied by Devondre Campbell, and the Packers win it in a game that will more than likely have a lot of impact on the playoffs come January. And then there's the whole Aaron Rodgers Jumbotron mystery going on, where Rodgers said the Jumbotron in the stadium showed something that it shouldn't have, at least in his words, and it's unknown whether Aaron used this so-called intel to help Green Bay on the 2-point conversion or not. I don't know, but he won't really say what it is. He just says what it isn't. So, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Aaron's just trying to stir up drama. I don't know. It wouldn't really be that surprising if it was the case. But who knows? Packers finally get their revenge over Tampa Bay after 2 years, basically. And then we fire back to the West Coast Falcons and the Seahawks playing in Lumen Field. Still not used to that new name. Atlanta gets their first in the win column. They held off Seattle from an always possible comeback. You know what I'm talking about. And despite Mariota having a mediocre day, Cordero Patterson had a monster game with over 150 scrimmage yards, almost all of it coming from the running back position. But it was enough to win in the game despite Geno Smith having another impressive showing. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Brissett in Cleveland, where you never expect to see these two as full-time starters, and yet they've been pretty impressive through the month of September. And besides that, there really isn't a whole lot to cover in this game, but a good win indeed for the Dirty Birds. Next up, we have the Sunday night matchup, the Niners playing Denver, and just like Chicago, the Denver defense dragged a limping Russell Wilson to another victory, this time against a more impressive opponent in the Niners and Garoppolo. Wilson had another underwhelming performance, throwing for under 200 yards, with over half those yards coming from Sutton. And honestly, there wasn't really anything very impressive with this game. Both offenses sputtered while the defense took advantage, and what we got was a Broncos win just because Garoppolo stepped out of bounds in the end zone, creating a safety. And if, that play doesn't happen, Russell Wilson's now 1-2. So, I mean, something's got to give for Russell Wilson. There's got to be something, like a game, or something where he can finally get that old mojo back that Denver paid all that money for. And then the Monday night game, we had Dallas at the Giants. Man, Cooper Rush is the man. He's now 3-0 as a starter. And he doesn't really have to be flashy or super impressive or have huge numbers, but he seems to understand this offense better than anything else. Maybe even Dak, because Rush just looks so comfortable out there. And usually you really don't see that with a backup quarterback. Usually they're nervous, or they're trying too hard to be the hero, or they don't seem to understand the schemes very much. But not Cooper. He's very much under control with the Dallas offense, and will probably keep Dallas afloat until Dak does return. And even with Elliott being outrushed by Pollard again, Cooper Rush he knows how to take matter into his own hands. A part of me was kind of cheering for the Giants to get that 3-0 start, but it's really hard to cheer against Cooper Rush, even if the Cowboys are easy to hate. And that was kind of the story with this game, Cooper Rush outplaying Daniel Jones. It helps a lot, too, though, if you are standing upright, which Rush had no problem of doing, while Daniel Jones had his face in the dirt time after time. The Cowboys defense really did a number on Daniel Jones and the Giants O-line. And I still believe, even with the Giants' loss, that the NFC East is a very much like a 3-team race between Dallas, Philly, and the Giants. And I think the Giants will pick up stuff very soon, but Dallas has been impressive even since Dak's injury. All right, now we're going to get into my list for the top 5 matchups of the week to watch. All right, first game I got, the game to watch is Buffalo at Baltimore. It's a noon game on CBS, and it's two super high-powered offenses going against, well, I guess, I don't know about Baltimore, but Buffalo has a really good defense. And I think this is going to be, I feel like Baltimore and Lamar Jackson in general have just been in these games where, like, Lamar Jackson really has to show, like, he's really trying to show that he deserves that payout, and he keeps getting put in these huge games. And this is going to be probably the biggest one so far against what I would still say is the best team in the league. And I think that's probably going to be the game of the week, but I don't want to jinx that either. My second game to watch this weekend is also a noon game, Jacksonville at Philadelphia. Doug Peterson returning to Philly. And this is going to be I want to see what Jalen Hurts can do against this Jaguars defense, because the Jaguars defense has shown that they can play. They can really play. And I don't think Jalen Hurts has played I don't really think Jalen Hurts has played a super superb defense yet. I think Jacksonville may be the best one he's played so far. So that should be fun to watch. My other one, I guess my third game of the week, would be the Sunday night game, Kansas City at Tampa Bay. Probably our last Mahomes-Brady matchup, but a rematch of Super Bowl 55 in the same stadium too, nonetheless. So that'll be a lot of fun to watch. It'll probably be, I imagine, a defensive showdown, but with all the tension going on the Chiefs' offense with the coaching staff and Patrick Mahomes, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that game. My fourth game of the week would be tonight's game, Miami at the Bengals. Miami looking to start 4-0 for probably the first time in forever. And the Bengals just got off their first win, so they are hitting the gas. And it's going to be interesting to see just how the Bengals offense handles Miami's defense, because Miami's defense is very good. They're very good. And I think it's going to be a case of, can Cincinnati keep up with Miami's high-powered offense? And if the answer is yes, then I think Cincinnati has a chance to win. But if Cincinnati can't keep up with Miami's offense, I think that's a Miami 4-0 start for sure. And then I would say my last game of the week, which is kind of a shocker one, but another noon game on Fox. This one's the Bears at the Giants. And I don't expect this to be a super crazy high scoring game or anything super fun to watch. I think it'll be fun to watch, but I think this is going to be like another defensive matchup, and the teams don't seem appealing on paper, but I think it's going to be I think it'll be a fun game to watch in terms of it's going to be close all game long, and I think it's just going to come down to who's going to outcoach who. Those are my games of the week for week 4. We went through week 3 talking about all the biggest news, headlines, all the injuries, all the drama, all the outcomes. Hopefully we'll be able to see some more drama this week. And next week we'll recap it too. And I hope everyone has a good weekend of football, and good luck to whatever team it is that you cheer for.